The Chicago Bears are standing in a place almost nobody expected, at the very top of the NFC. Not just the division, the entire conference. And now, with the season heading into its final stretch, something unbelievable has become real. The Bears don't need help from anyone. Their path to the number 1 seed is in their own hands. December has arrived, the pressure is rising, and suddenly Chicago has become the team everyone else is watching. 5 games left. 5 chances to prove they belong at the top of the league. And if they take care of business, the NFC will have to go through the city of Chicago. Before we break down everything, let me hit you with this question. What seed do you think the Bears will finish with? First? Second? Fifth? Or will this roller coaster take a wild turn? Drop your answer, I'm curious how bold you're feeling today. Now, here's what makes this whole situation even crazier. Chicago already holds key tiebreakers. Teams like the Rams or even the Seahawks? If they finish with the same record as the Bears, Chicago still comes out on top. The math just doesn't work for those teams to pass them. The Bears built their advantage early, taking care of games inside the NFC, and now it's paying off in a huge way. Look at the schedule ahead. Packers on the road. Browns at home. Packers again. A brutal showdown with San Francisco. And then the Lions to close it out. No one's pretending this is easy. But the Bears have already shown they can shock anyone at any time. We just watched them dominate Philadelphia. They're no longer afraid of tough matchups. They are the tough matchup. And hey, real quick, if you love riding through this Bears journey with me, make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tap the bell icon. It helps the channel more than you know, and it makes sure you never miss a moment during this wild playoff push. Back to the race for the top seed. The Rams? Chicago still stays ahead of them even if the records match. Conference wins matter, and the Bears are stacking them up. With 4 NFC games left and a 6-2 conference record, they control their own fate. Meanwhile, the Rams have fewer conference wins and no mathematical path to catch up in the tiebreaker. Whether the Bears go 4-1, 3-2, or even 2-3, a tie still pushes Chicago ahead of LA. And when you compare schedules, the Rams might get some easier matchups, but none of that matters if they can't leapfrog Chicago. The Bears have the wheel now. The question is, can they hold on? We've got a lot more to break down, including the 49ers, the Packers, and every other NFC contender breathing down Chicago's neck, so stay with me. When you look at the road ahead, it becomes clear every small slip from another NFC contender can open the door even wider for Chicago. And while we don't need to obsess over other teams, a single stumble from the right opponent could make the Bears climb to the top even smoother. Detroit will face tough matchups down the stretch, and every time they get pushed, it helps keep the Bears in the driver's seat. The same goes for Seattle. Their conference record already puts them behind Chicago, and with the Bears sitting on fewer NFC losses, the advantage is firmly in Chicago's hands. Seattle's schedule isn't terrifying, sure, but even if they finish strong, they still need to leap over a wall the Bears have already built. And then there's Green Bay. 2 meetings. 2 chances to settle everything head-to-head. It's simple, win both, and Green Bay is no longer a concern. What makes this even more interesting is the timing. While the Bears get the Browns at home, the Packers have to travel to Denver, a draining, physical matchup that almost always leaves teams banged up. And right after that, they walk into Soldier Field on a short week. If Chicago handles their business, that stretch could swing the entire NFC race. Every piece of the puzzle points to one thing: the Bears have the power to control everything that happens next as long as they keep answering the moment. Stay with me, it gets even more interesting from here. This stretch of the season is exactly where Chicago has to strike. A win at Lambeau would flip the entire NFC picture on its head and give the Bears a huge edge heading into the rematch later in the month. And when you look at Green Bay's upcoming challenges, the door is wide open for Chicago to take control. Green Bay still has Baltimore on the schedule. They still have to travel to Minnesota. And by the time they get to that point, who knows what shape that Vikings team will even be in. Nothing about their path is easy, and the Bears are already sitting ahead of them in the standings. 2 head-to-head battles remain, and Chicago doesn't need luck or chaos. All they need to do is win. If the Bears take both games against Green Bay, the division race becomes theirs. No complicated tiebreakers. No scoreboard watching. Just head-to-head dominance. That's the beauty of controlling your own destiny. You don't rely on anyone else to do the job for you. Chicago fans already know what this rivalry means. It's emotional. It's historic. And right now, it's meaningful in the playoff chase more than ever. These next matchups carry the weight of an entire season. Now, let's shift to another giant standing in Chicago's way, the San Francisco 49ers. They're only a half game behind the Bears, and just like Chicago, they've kept their NFC record clean. This is where things tighten, where every win and every mistake becomes massive. And the best part? The Bears get to face them directly. Stay with me, this playoff race is about to get even more intense. The race between Chicago and San Francisco suddenly feels completely different from what it was just a few weeks ago. What once looked like a fight for a lower playoff spot has turned into a battle that might decide the top of the NFC. The 49ers are still dangerous, still disciplined, and still capable of winning out, but Chicago holds something far more important: control. San Francisco comes out of their bye with a soft start, and they'll probably stack a couple of wins quickly. But everything changes when they meet the Bears. That matchup hasn't just grown in importance, it might end up becoming one of the most meaningful games of the entire NFC season. If the Bears take that one, the 49ers can't catch them. No math needed. No scoreboard watching. Beat them head-to-head, and the road to the top stays in Chicago's hands. Then there's Philadelphia. Chicago already knocked them down once, and that head-to-head win gives the Bears a major cushion. The Eagles have 4 losses, the Bears have 3, and the difference feels even bigger because Chicago owns the tiebreaker. Even if Philadelphia finds a way to steady themselves, their margin for error is tiny. Chicago would have to collapse for the Eagles to leap over them. Philadelphia's schedule isn't terrifying, but it's not easy enough to expect a flawless finish either. They've been inconsistent, shaky at times, and far from the powerhouse people expected. Meanwhile, Chicago continues to hold the stronger position, 1 full game ahead, and effectively 2 because of the head-to-head result. When you look at all of it together, the picture becomes clear: every path, every scenario, every possibility keeps pointing back to one truth. If the Bears keep winning, nobody can move past them. Not the Niners. Not the Eagles. Not anyone. And the biggest games, the ones that truly decide the conference, are still coming. Stay with me, this story is just getting good. When you step back and look at the entire NFC landscape, one thing becomes obvious: almost every path still leads directly through the Chicago Bears. The teams chasing them may still be fighting, but most of them are running out of room to make any real impact on Chicago's position. A handful of NFC teams with winning records are technically in the hunt, but very few of them can actually threaten the Bears for a top seed. Take Tampa Bay, for example. Even if they find a late-season spark and go on a run, they're too far back to catch Chicago. They can shuffle playoff positions for other teams, but they're not closing the gap on the Bears. Detroit remains the closest division opponent, but their situation is far more fragile than it seemed earlier in the year. Their schedule tightens dramatically, and if they falter even once, especially with Chicago still waiting at the end, the Bears stay firmly in control. Detroit needs to survive this stretch just to stay relevant. Chicago only needs to keep winning. And then there are teams like Dallas or Minnesota. They can make noise, they can win games, they can complicate the middle of the playoff picture, but none of them are in a position to take the conference lead away from Chicago unless the Bears collapse completely. The only opponents that matter now are the ones directly connected to Chicago's path: the Packers, the 49ers, and the Eagles. Everyone else is fighting for scraps behind them. That's the power of controlling the NFC. When you're at the top, the field gets smaller. The noise gets quieter. And the pressure shifts to everyone else. But the biggest tests, the ones that define everything, are still ahead. Stay with me, the final section pulls it all together. As the NFC playoff race tightens, every game around the conference sends shockwaves toward Chicago. Some matchups, like the upcoming Lions showdown with Dallas, could completely reshape who survives long enough to challenge the Bears. Detroit is fighting to stay afloat, but if they stumble again, especially before facing the Rams, their playoff hopes may fade fast. And if they limp into Soldier Field in freezing temperatures? That's a setting built for Chicago, not Detroit. Across the conference, plenty of teams are still fighting each other just to stay alive, but only a handful can truly affect the Bears at the top. The NFC South race might push one team to the postseason, but none of them look threatening enough to chase down Chicago. Most of them are simply trying to win a weak division, not climb the conference ladder. And that brings us to the real question, the one every Bears fan quietly thinks about: who would you want Chicago to face first if they had to play on Wild Card Weekend? If it were up to me, I'd take the team least prepared for a cold January night in Chicago. A young quarterback. A team built on finesse, not power. Someone who wouldn't handle the wind, the cold, or the pressure. But the truth is, the Bears shouldn't have to worry about that matchup at all, not if they keep the NFC lead. Because the real dream scenario isn't an opponent. It's a week off. A bye. At home. As the number 1 seed. And right now, the Bears still hold that dream in their own hands.